welcome to the HSA podcast, Rise Above. I'm your host, Paul Swartz. Today I got a special guest, one of my really good friends, Hayden Lankabel. A real quick introduction about Hayden, before I get into it. He played for me for a year in high school. He played at Marion. Probably one of the toughest nosed kids I've ever had a chance to work with. I have nothing but respect for him. Without further ado, Hayden, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself, tell the fans who you are, how you started, where you played, what you're doing now.
I'm Hayden Lankabel, from a small town in Morristown. Went to high school there my whole life, even through elementary. Just been involved in basketball. Basketball's been a big part of my life, my family. Had an older brother that he was 6 years older than I was, so just a lot of competition. Always trying to want to beat him. Just trying to better myself. Came up through elementary at Morristown, got to high school, had a pretty decent and successful career, I thought, and then got the opportunity to go play college basketball, where I chose to go to Marion University. Got to play 5 years there due to COVID. Scored over 1,000 points in college, scored over 2,000 points in high school. So overall, people just say I can put the ball in the basket. I like to be a little bit more humble about stuff, but on the podcast here, Paul wants me to,
tell them who you are, man.
Tell people who I am. So, just basketball's been a big part of my life. And now that I'm done with college ball, I just kind of stopped playing. Picked up coaching back in my high school, and kind of just enjoying that. It's a little bit more laid back at a small school. Just trying to build the kids up. Trying to teach them things that I learned coming through, and biggest thing is just trying to get them to have a work ethic.
So real quick, there's a difference between being cocky and being humble. Humble is having the ability to do it, but not talking about it. Cockiness is the ability that you can do it, but you're going to talk about it. And so one thing about Hayden, he's incredibly humble. I have nothing but respect. I would argue that he's probably the greatest player to ever come out of Morristown, would be my argument. If I would say debatable, but I don't think it's much of a debate. So anyway, getting into that, and something that you brought up is I think this is also crucial for second-born children, which second-born, you have your sister. When you talk about that, your brother was 6 years ahead of you, so you're kind of on the cusp of, hey, little Hayden's a little too small to play with, but also just right to get beat up on by your brother. Can you talk about that and how that motivated you?
We didn't really play much on the court and stuff, but our parents would always get us trampolines, and we probably went through 8 or 10 of them through his time coming through high school and my time coming through. But we would get trampolines and we would put basketball hoops up on the side of them, so we're just playing dunk ball. And the battles we had on there are, I would come back upstairs with just bruises. There was one time Dylan cut my eye real hard from an elbow. And I was just a little kid going up against him, but I did not hold back on him. I wanted to literally try to kill him on the trampoline, because there was something about losing to him that just got to me, and that's really where I think that led on to my, when I got older in life, of my hatred for losing. I always had that as a little kid, and I just think that comes with the competitive spirit of having older siblings, trying to beat them. And my brother was he was a 2,000 point scorer in high school too. So we're the second pair of brothers in Indiana. The Shepherd twins from Carmel were the other set of brothers to score over 2,000, and we're the second set of family members to score over 2,000. And he always just kind of set those goals for me to try to beat, and I think that just started as a little kid competing against him.
So it started real early. I don't want to lose. It's dunk ball, it's whatever. And I've seen you two guys go at it, and you guys respectfully go at it. Talk about that though. When you step on the court, and you and I have been competitors with each other, and then sometimes against each other. When you're on my team, I'm your best friend. But when you're on the other side, I want to take you out. What does that transpire between crossing the lines? You get on the court and you say, okay, now we're competitors. But then you step off the court, you guys go at it, and you guys are railing each other. I mean, it's personal. But then you guys, the second you guys get off the court, you guys are walking, hand in hand or hugging each other as you guys walk out the door, and you guys laugh about it as you walk home. Can you talk about that and where that comes from and how you manage it?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're family, and even going through high school and college, like competing against your teammates, like at the end of the day, you guys are family. So I think there has to be a level of, you just got to know a time and a place. I knew that on the court or if we're playing on the trampoline that I'm not losing. And I'm not going to let that carry over. I might let it carry over for an hour or two, but I'm not going to let it carry over for days and whatnot of, having hatred or being mad at him or anything. I think it's more of just, there's a time and a place. You got to know your surroundings, don't carry stuff over too far. But at the end of the day, we're just family, and it's just all fun and games. It's competitive. I'm not trying to lose. He's not trying to lose, and I would hope neither of us are trying to lose. I hope we're trying to better each other. So.
And something that I really respected about you, and this is something that people need to understand, is you were one of the best at taking what I was saying and looking at me and like, this dude is not saying it to be personal. He's saying it to make me better. And when Dylan would go toe-to-toe with you, when your teammates would go toe-to-toe to you, it wasn't personal. It was an opportunity for them to make you better. Can you talk on that a little bit and what you saw with that and how you handled it?
Yeah, coming up, my dad always used to tell me, listen to what they're saying, not how they're saying it. He used to always tell me this story of Michael Jordan came out, was having a great game, passing his teammates, just, doing everything that he needs to be doing on the court. I think that he's saying they went in the locker room, maybe up 8-10 or whatever it was, and, Phil Jackson just comes into the locker room and just lays in on Michael Jordan, just telling how bad he's doing, everything he's doing wrong, everything he can do better, I guess I should say. And Michael Jordan comes out in the second half and just tears the other team apart. And I think there's just a level of, you got to know what the coaches are trying to say to you, not listen to how they're saying it. More times than not, they're trying to do the right thing, say the right thing to you, and it might just come off a little in the moment, a little, mean or whatever it is. But, as the best player, I think there is a time that teams can get relaxed, and if you get on the top player, that shows the other teammates like, oh, coach isn't showing him favoritism, and they'll probably respect you more, and if I respond positively, they're going to respect me more for that.
That makes sense. I mean, so what I'm hearing you say though is that if you're the guy expecting to carry the team, you should be taking the load of the conversations and the brunt of what's being said.
Yeah, if you're the best player on the team, I mean, your team's having an okay game, it's probably going to come back to you of not being, maybe you're not doing the things or you're not leading the team as you should be. And, at the end of the day, you are the best player on the team. You're the captain of the team. Coach should come at you. He shouldn't, show you any favoritism or anything. And you just got to take it and respond. That's the biggest thing, is responding to what they're saying. If you shut down, then it's going to be a bad rap for the team. But if you come out there and respond, again, your teammates are just they're going to rally around you.
What does shutting down look like to you?
Being scared to do stuff, overthinking stuff. When coaches start getting on you, start overthinking instead of just playing freely. That's probably something I struggled with when I went to college was, coming from being a top dog again to being a freshman in college. Coaches are getting on you again. That was a hard thing for me to adjust to that. I started overthinking the game. The college game is much faster, so it was taking me a few years to adjust to it. And, I started, not taking shots, not driving aggressively, just overthinking stuff and not playing as free as you should be is kind of what I see as shutting down. That makes sense.
Shifting gears real quick, and this is something that I want people to really, really dig in about you. Yes, you scored 2,000 points. It means you took a lot of shots. Was that your main objective every time on the court?
No, my main objective was just to win. Leaving Morristown High School, I was the all-time assist leader as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm just out there chucking up shots and not passing the ball. I was just trying to make the right read. You know, people always hate on LeBron because he doesn't take the last-minute shots or, you know, whatever it is he does. But he's out there making the right reads, and you know that's kind of what I try to do as a player. Of not just being a scorer, because at a 1A school, my team needs me to score because we probably didn't until my senior year. We probably didn't have the best players out there. So
can I throw something on that though?
Yeah.
Would you say that it was selfish of you not to take the shot? If you're the best player and you're not shooting because of the pressure, that's almost just as selfish as passing the ball not enough.
Yeah, yes. My dad, and he's talked to me a bunch, and he's been a great inspiration for me, but he always used to tell me when I was younger through my high school career that it is more selfish for me to not take the shots. Not only is that going to hurt our team, because more than likely you pass the ball, even a worse shot's going to go up, or possibly a turnover, live ball turnover, they're in transition. You have to have a level of aggressiveness when you're out on the court to know you're the best player, take the shots, don't be scared.
Can we talk about the state championship game?
Yep.
So state championship game, even the tournament run, a lot of people scouted Hayden Lankabel. Hayden Lankabel was public enemy number one on everyone's to-do list. So state championship game, people would assume you walk out with the scoring title and you walk out with a triple-double. Is that what happened?
That is not what happened at all. Yeah. People like to say I had a bad game, but I really didn't.
Who said they have a bad game? Have them come talk to me. I will put them in their place. You did not have a bad game.
It just wasn't the 30-point games that people were used to going through that tournament. And, I think I had 18, and I almost had a triple-double as well. It was 18, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Last year I had a triple-double that game. I was close to it.
But this is what I want people to understand, though. This is what I want people to understand. The competitor inside of you took it as, I'm going to take this attention because you garnered 3 guys on you every time you touched the ball, which means somebody else was open. And that means you guys also build a trust that you didn't even think twice about passing the ball. It was automatic. Boom. Give Laster the ball. Boom. Give Daniel Berryman the ball. Boom. Give Eli the ball. And so they garnered that trust with you where you didn't have to put up 30. And can you speak about that?
Yeah, again, the state championship game, if kids go to state, just cherish the moment, because it goes by so fast that I'm still trying to remember moments that happened during it. But during that game, there's actually a kid who went and played football at Marion University, who played on the Southwood team against us in the state championship. And he came up to me and said, "Man, who is that Eli kid?" He was like, all we scouted was you and Laster. And, that's kind of that's what you saw during the game was, they were so keyed in on me as a player that they forgot that we had 2 other guys who could, play ball as well. And, I kind of just, I saw that they were doing good early, and, I kind of just coasted along with that. And, before I noticed, I look up during a timeout when we're up 20 points. So I'm like,
what did that happen?
What is going on? Yeah, so it was that game just really flew by for me. It felt like I couldn't really catch my rhythm, but the team had a rhythm. So and that's the great part about having teammates that you can trust. I didn't have to have the greatest game or come out and score 30 points. It really just relieved a lot of pressure off of me to go out there and just play, do the things I need to do. 12 rebounds, 8 assists, whatever it is. Defend. There's so many other things and that's one thing I think players struggle with. There's so many other different things that you can do on a court other than just score the ball. And, coaching high school now, that's one thing I really realized, that if one of your better players are, or a scorer is not scoring, missing some shots, they tend to really get down on themselves, which starts to affect their defense, their cuts even on offense are just slower. But yeah, that's one thing that with
Let me interrupt you real quick. Let's talk about that though. Like, tell these people, what are the specific things besides just saying, hey, it's a general, like, you as a player, you as a coach, what specific things can you do to alter the game?
just play hard every possession. That was one thing that I tried to do was, not take plays off. I should leave in a game. You should just be fully exhausted, leaving all your energy out there. What was the question?
Talk about what it looks like to I forgot the question. Talk about Drake, cut. No. So what does it look like to shut down? Like what exactly? Okay, so the ball's not going in. What are the other ways you can influence the game?
There's so many different things that you can do on a court other than just score the ball. There's people that take pride on defense.
So you could on the defensive end of the floor.
Defensive end, offensive end. Making sure you're still making hard cuts, crisp passes.
Taking charges.
And still just not shutting down. Even if you're missing shots, don't be afraid to take the next few. Now, if you're gonna take them without confidence, that's a different point. But if you've missed a few and you're still shooting with confidence, we're gonna live with it.
Confidence in a double team shot are two. Like if you're wide open and that's your shot, then yes. But if you're double teamed, then you say, "Hey, well, I took the shot." Like there's probably a reason you're missing here, homeboy. Like that's probably it.
The other part of it is just having a good attitude on the bench. If you get subbed out or whatever it is, and you come out and you're all pouty and not cheering on your teammates, that coaches see everything, and that's one thing that I realized with getting back in coaching is I don't think I saw everything I see now as a player because I wasn't on the bench.
Nor should you. You were focusing on the team. Yeah.
But now as a coach, you really get to see all the reactions that every player has. Who's cheering for teammates, who's not, who's diving on loose balls. It's a different eye that you get to see the game from when you step back and start coaching.
This is something I said to Chance, and he ran, and we had. I don't know if you remember this, the bench mob.
Yep.
It was his baby, but I told him you got to understand when you take over the bench, it's one less thing I as a coach have to worry about. Now I can focus on my attention on something else. If I'm focusing on the bench, I'm not focusing on the defensive rotations. I'm not focusing on their double team coverage. And so when you have a player that's special like you guys, so for you coming to the bench, I never had to worry about you. My only, and we've talked about this, my only worry for you was what am I going to say to motivate this kid? And I don't know if you remember those talks or whatnot, where I said some not polite things, but I had to find a way because you put up 30 points, you come sit on the bench, and I'm like, what am I supposed to say to this kid? I'm not congratulating him. Like, guess what? You should have had 35. You would have had 50 if you would have hit free throws.
Yeah, talking about that bench mob, and I know you just had Chance on in high school. He didn't play unless we were up 30 or so, but he never lost his energy throughout the game. And when we got up big, the crowd would just start chanting for him. But going back to that, that's just one thing that talking to younger kids of coaches do see everything, and your energy on the bench. In college, we would go back and watch film, and coach would just replay certain exciting plays that happened during the game, and he would make everyone just watch the bench's reaction, whether that was good or whether there was no reaction. He would notice players on the bench, and a lot of times, if you're bringing great energy on the bench, then you're more than likely probably going to get in the game and bring that same energy onto the floor.
It was funny because I was talking to Chance about this, and there was two things he could have done. He could have pouted, got down by 30 and got in, or in his mind he goes, hey, the harder I cheer, the more I know the scouting report, the quicker we get up by 30, the more playing time I get. And so, yes, he did it for the team, but there's a selfish part of it of like, hey, the quicker we blow this team out, I'll get it in the first half if we keep this up. And it's funny because people talk about like your scoring and all that. And this is something I have to remind people of. You probably would have had more points if we were in more competitive games. You look at that schedule we played. We went 20 into 30 games. Probably 25 of those games, 24 of those games were blowouts. So you're mid through the third, all fourth quarter, you're sitting down, sitting next to us. And you took that bench mob. You then became part of the bench mob. And I think it's powerful for people to see the leading scorer on the bench cheering. There was two pops I remember. The first one was Jerry Riley hitting a 3 in a game. He airballed the first one for the record. but he was our manager. He had some abilities with him, so he played his senior year, and the whole place went nuts. He went nuts for basketball. But the other pop that would have competed with that was when Chance got in, and Chance hit a shot against his senior night, and just the whole crowd just going nuts. And so, if the crowd sees the bench and they see the leading scorer, they're pouting, sucking his teeth, then the crowd doesn't go nuts. Like, that's one thing people have to understand. So we're gonna backpedal a little bit. Born in Michigan, raised in Morristown.
Born in Indiana.
You were born. Your brother was born in Michigan. Okay, so you're born in Indiana. You don't know anything else. What is Hayden's motivation? When did you start becoming aware of I want to say greatness or how good you were? What did you also do when you flicked that switch and said, "Hey, I got a chance to be good on this"? And I remember your dad threatening you with a job, and then you saying, "Hey, I'm going to wake up every morning. I'm going to show up, and I'm going to." What did that greatness happen, and what did it look like?
Again, just ever since I was little, I've had a ball in my hand. That's another big point to the kids is I would every game that my brother had, or we would travel to a basketball game, I was taking the basketball with me. That's one thing that I just think is funny seeing little kids with basketballs. That just I think that went a long way for me of just always having a ball in my hand no matter where I went. But no, growing up in Morristown, again, with my older brother, he was playing basketball, so I always just wanted to play basketball. And again, we were always competing from as little as I remember. But no, coming up through middle school, I always kind of realized that I was kind of more talented than some of the kids. Again, you're just a little kid, so you don't really recognize the work that basketball really takes to become great. But having an older brother, I always got to see him work out. I would go into the weight room with him. I would go when he had workouts with other trainers. I would just go watch, again, have a ball in my hand, just shooting around at the other end of the court while he's working out. But I always just had a visual eye of, kind of what he was doing. He kind of paved the way for me of my work ethic. And then, I got into high school. As a freshman, I was okay. I didn't think I was anything great. As a sophomore, I thought I had an okay season, nothing great. And then, my junior and senior year, averaging 27 points per game, I took a huge leap. And, I think that just came with, my work ethic. But something happened that switched my light after my sophomore year. And this is going to be funny that Logan Laster, who was on my team, he was a freshman that year. Coach Mack gave him he was all conference, and I didn't get it. We only had one selection, and he gave it to the freshman instead of me. And I remember, this is kind of sad, but
no.
I remember laying in my bed crying about how upset I was. But I turned that, into motivation of, I'm not letting this happen to me.
Oh, you got to be kidding me, you mother. Drake, edit, Drake. Drake, edit. God damn. Censor. That's the first time it's done that. Sorry, and there's a cuss word in there. Cut it out, Drake. Cut it out. So you're in bed. You got Logan Laster got conference, and you didn't. So that was a nice little commercial break. We'll put a commercial in there. But no, sophomore year, coach gives the all-conference selection to a freshman over me, and it just came down to he had better stats in conference games. Not that he was better than me, but we'll let that go. But I remember just laying in bed crying with how upset I was, and something just switched where I was like, I'm not letting that happen to me ever again. So that summer, I went to work, and it really started. The biggest thing I think really helped me was my commitment to the weight room, and that once I got committed to the weight room and I started getting stronger, knees started feeling better, body started feeling better. I was recovering faster. I could feel my explosiveness starting to come. I started dunking around that time. My commitment to the weight room is what I think kind of took me to that next step. And I come out that junior year, and I went to work, averaging 27 points per game, just really just
going after it. And, after my junior year, I thought I was going to be our all-county player of the year. I made first team, but they ended up giving it to a kid at Shelbyville just because he went to a bigger school. They said he played against tougher competition. And, again, after that junior year of thinking I was going to be this all-player of the year, they'd give it to someone else. And, again, I just kind of felt disrespected. So, that summer, I kind of realized that, if they're going to give it to this kid because he's at a bigger school, whatnot, they have a better record. His stats doesn't match my stats, but, they just have a better record, whatever it is. I kind of realized that not only do I need to make myself better before the senior year, I need to make my teammates better. And that kind of just came of, that summer I really started pushing my teammates, in the weight room, on the court. And, I was never really a vocal leader of, I'm telling them to get the work. It was more of just they saw how hard I was working, so they picked it up a little bit. And, it doesn't have to be a lot that they pick it up, but as long as you get them working a little bit harder, that's all you can do as a captain. And, after that year, again, 27 points per game. I had these same stats I had my junior year. The only thing that was different from winning all-county was my team won state, and we had an 18-2 record. So, I kind of realized that, not only do I need to make myself better, but I need to make my team better to win these things like state or set. My biggest thing also was that pushed me sophomore year, junior year, losing the sectional championship. That drove me crazy. Couldn't stand it. So that senior year, I was like, we are winning sectional no matter what. And honestly, that's all I wanted to win.
Yeah.
Once we won sectional, I was like, I am happy.
We're good.
We're good. Like, I don't even care what happens after this.
And then some crazy guy starts talking in the locker room about 7 more games.
Yeah. He starts talking about state, and I'm like, yo, I'm about to go sit on the beach, all right? But no, I was ready for a vacation. But no, through that run, after sectional, it was just, everything flew by, it seemed like. Going to regional, winning our game in the morning, championship against the defending state champs, Tinley, come out and score 46 points. I was playing so freely at that point, just because I had that pressure of winning sectionals off me, that, it kind of felt like nothing was going to stop me. If I missed 20 shots, I won sectionals. So honestly, winning sectional that senior year just relieved so much pressure off of me to, kind of finish out that run the way that I did.
So it's interesting because as you talk, this is what I'm hearing. I hear a lot of downfalls and a lot of pitfalls. Like, it just seemed like you have so many things that could have discouraged you or broke you or said, hey, I don't want to do it. And I think that's part of leadership and part of tenacity and getting back up. That's part of life. And that's one thing I respect about you. But you've had a lot of downfalls. How do you process that? Like, you could either get better or worse. And obviously, you chose to get better from those. But talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, at the moment that you don't, everyone wants to receive awards, get the accolades that they're supposed to, but losing those things or not getting them like you think you're going to, you feel really down at the moment. I kind of just said, screw it. I'm not letting these things hold me down. I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, there's probably more that I could do to get better.
Yeah.
There's always more that someone can do to get better. It's kind of just tweaking out my, schedule, my regimen of, doing these certain things. And that's, people always see you're at practice or games, whatnot, but not a lot of people, recognize the work that I put in, behind the scenes. And a lot of that just had to do with, I can't even think about the amount of times my dad rebounded for me at the gym. Whether that's good or bad, he would kind of just let me work through my kinks of, if I'm going over the gym and I'm missing shots, I'm getting frustrated, he wouldn't just sit there and yell at me or whatnot. He would kind of let me figure those things out on my own. At home, just eating right. In high school, I was huge into stretching. I stretched all the time, probably, at least 30 minutes at night minimum. but I was always stretching, and that honestly was a big thing. A part of me of why I think I was so good was the recovery part of, a lot of people, a lot of players, I guess I should say, like to go to practice and think that's all they need to do. And that's good players work out, great players outwork. I love that saying of, it is so true of, you could be down, again, just not getting the awards that you think so. And if you think that you can just go to practice and that's going to change anything, you are completely wrong. You need to take that next step of, and I recognize that of, I need to take this next step of doing things off the court by myself to not only better myself, but, better my team.
It's funny you say that. and this is what I heard you say, and it's really, I really hope anyone that's listening right now, you threw a lot out there, a lot. And it was a lot of very, very good things. You took the loss. Now let me ask you a question. Did you hold on to that loss, or did you let the loss go? And what I mean by that, so it's 3 o'clock, school's over. Do I go home and just putz around on the computer or the video games, or do you hold on to that loss and go back and say, I'm going to shoot another 300 threes because I don't want to feel like that again?
I definitely held on to it until I won.
And I tell people that all the time. Right now, this is the part where people are getting cut. And people are like, oh, can you make my son feel better? I'm like, no. In fact, don't hold on to that. Because I don't know if you know this, the year before I came to Morristown was a horrendous year for me. And I told myself, I'm not doing that again as a coach. And these guys are going to get the best of Paul every single day. And when I drove in there and I was feeling, as a coach, we feel bad, we feel sad, we feel exhausted. And I'm like, I'm not doing that again. Like, we're not doing this. So you got the best version that I could present every day. So, but my previous year drove me to be a better coach. So that's the first thing. You held on to it in a good way, in a healthy way.
One thing with that, even just, Michael Jordan got cut from his high school team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's people nowadays, I feel like, just want the easy route. They want to know what's like the magic pill that's going to help me get there. And there's nothing magical about it. It's truly just hard.
You have to know how to manage failure.
Yes.
You have to know how to manage failure. And you sound like you did a good job doing that. Now, here's the other thing you stepped into, and we're going to talk about this. You came up with a detailed plan. It wasn't that you just said, I'm going to do better. And then you woke up, shot, did this, that. You went back and you studied. You understood more than just the game. You understood your body. And that was something that a lot of people have talked about, but didn't really regiment. What did your regiment look like? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It was very specific.
I wouldn't say it was that specific. It was, I didn't have stuff written down. I didn't have workout plans. If I was going into the weight room by myself, I would kind of just walk in there, think of, what do I want to strengthen? What am I not sore on? And I would kind of just hit those as hard as I could.
But again, that is a plan.
It's a plan in my own mind, and that's one thing that I love to do was to come up with my own workouts. I think, again, just kids nowadays want to know, like, what's the magic pill? They want to have the best trainers, the best workouts, and it really just comes. My favorite part was creating my own workout, going in the gym, and doing it all as hard as I could. And that was like the most fun thing that I could do. I didn't want to spend all this money, all this time driving to trainers. I'm out in Morristown, which is 45 minutes from Indy, and I didn't want to drive there 3 days a week. I did go to trainers now, but I would take those things I learned from different trainers and I would implement those into my own workouts. And I just kind of.
It was self-driven.
Yeah, a lot of it was just self-driven. I know what I needed to work on, whether that's in the weight room, whether that's on the court. And I would just implement those things into my own workouts. I'm gonna get in there, work on this, and I would just go as hard as I could. And I found more enjoyment out of doing stuff on my own than people telling me what to do.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That's
one funny thing about that was I wasn't always about having the perfect setup or whatever it was for working out. But one day during summer, this was going into my sophomore year, Coach Mack just got the job here at Morristown. And I'm out at the park behind the school with my cones set up, going through dribbling drills, going through different finishing drills, and he just randomly pulls up to go put stuff into his office. So here I am as a sophomore, outside at the park by myself, creating own workouts with cones, 2-ball, whatever it was, and our high school coach pulls up. And he's kind of mentioned it of, that's when he knew that there was going to be something special in Morristown. And so, just, again, being coaches hear and see everything. When you're putting in work or when you're not,
we know.
Coaches know. And it really does affect, I think me and Coach Mack had a great relationship, and I think that just kind of, really all my coaches did. And I think that's just because, they recognized how much I cared about it, how much work I put in, that, if I'm doing bad, it's not because I don't care.
Yeah.
It just might be a bad game for me. So, there was a lot of trust of, how hard I went, built that trust even more with my coaches.
That's one thing, though, especially motivating you, I never had to challenge your work ethic. It was never, hey, you're not going hard enough. I know always challenging you. I remember there's a couple times where I challenged your belief system in yourself of, God. It was never, whenever I had to challenge you, it was never, hey, you're not good enough. My challenge to you was you don't think you're as good as you think you are. I know you're better. Not from an effort standpoint, but like you don't think the ball's going to go in. That's why the ball's not going to go in. And that's one reason why I loved working with you, is because it was never about your work ethic. And people got to understand that when you're challenging work ethic, you're not coaching. If I'm challenging your work ethic, it's not coaching. That's motivational speaking. And if your coach is a motivational speaker, then you're not going to go very far. All you guys, I never had to once challenge, even in the morning workouts. It was never you're not going hard enough, but I was challenging your legacy. I was challenging, what are you leaving here at Morristown? Are you happy leaving that at Morristown? And that's what kind of drove you guys to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get that extra rep, and I'm going to. And a lot of times, I'm not going to lie, I made myself the villain sometimes, where I was like, I'm working hard to despise this guy. But you also knew it came from a place of love. Something else that we touched upon, and was, you mentioned the leadership aspect. And this is the one thing, I never noticed it, but then after you graduated, little stories, little Hayden stories started popping up. Well, Hayden did this, Hayden did that, Hayden did this. And it was funny because when you were on the team, I thought everybody loved you, everything was great, cookies and rainbows and bunny rabbits. And then after you left, like, everyone's like, hey, but Hayden's a bit of a jerk. Hayden held me accountable. And everything they said, it wasn't, I'm like, well, what did he do that was a jerk? Well, he held me accountable and make sure I knew the plays. Well, that's not being a jerk. That's being a leader. Like, how did that go? Like, you took, so A, you held on to the hurt. The second thing was you had a regiment. You decided to put in a goal. And then your last thing that you increased was your leadership. And what did that look like? How did it feel? Like, talk me through, like, the first week you did it. And I know when you make that shift of being a leader, it's hard. But how did you cope through that, and what was your thought process?
Yeah, I don't know if there's really any thought behind my leadership. I knew that I wanted to win, our sectional my senior year. I just knew how much work I wanted to put in. But it's funny that I never really thought I was that mean or did anything during practice. But some of the stories that have been popping up, I'm like, maybe I was a little bit aggressive at some points. I think that just stems from my hatred of losing, which probably grew from when I was little, battling my brother, of just my hatred of losing. And my other hatred was mediocrity. I coming from Morristown, little town, 1A school, there's never really been a whole lot of championships in the school. Mediocrity kind of just runs through Morristown, and some of the parents, some of the kids, I think they're fine with that. They're fine with being okay. And I hated that. I was not fine with being okay. I was not fine with losing. I was not fine with not being county player of the year. I think that kind of just drove me of again, losing championships my sophomore junior year. I realized that it's more than just me. It's going to take a team to do this. And again, I was during practice, during the summer, I would never felt like I was a very vocal leader. I felt like I was always just more visual. I never took it easy on my teammates, whether that's one-on-one, playing 5-on-5. Like, again, you step on the court, you're on the other team of 5-on-5, you are the villain. We can be friends after, we can be cool after, but again, if I give you a bloody nose, I'm probably not going to feel bad about it until after. Just because I was that competitive, and I think that really kind of just drove my teammates to, it's not a big step that your teammates have to take, but if they take a little step, it's going to go a long way of just increasing the overall team's player. And iron sharpens iron. So if you're battling out there, they're battling back. Not only am I going to make them better, but they're going to make me better.
And it's interesting because I don't know if you ever know this, but I never held you guys to a different standard I'd hold myself. A lot of cardio stuff, when I wasn't coaching, I was doing the cardio stuff with you. I was doing the push-ups, I was doing the abs. But also, I tell people this all the time, if I don't know the scouting report, I can't hold you accountable for knowing the scouting report. And so for me as a coach, I held myself accountable because a leader is here and he's trying to pull everyone to his level. If the leader is here and is trying to push people, you can't push from a leadership position. You have to be in the front. That's why it's the leader. Yep. And so every morning, like for me, what I always took pride in, what I always remember, it's not the ring, it's not the championship. It was those 6 a.m. workouts where I was hyper, I was bouncing off the wall, I was throwing stuff at you guys, I was giving you guys hugs, and you guys walk in the locker room like, I'm going to punch coach. I think today's the day I'm going to do it. Like, and then someone's like, if you do it, I'm right behind you, man. I swear to God, if you cross that line one more time. But we all walked out of there knowing that we wanted to be better and we were on a mission, and that was the one thing that I loved about that team. It was interesting. I don't know if you know this. I cried after the state championship game.
I remember.
And but I don't know if I ever told you this. It was because we weren't practicing on a Monday. Like, that was the last day we're all going to be together. Like, and I finally realized, like, oh my God, this is over. Like, I don't get to hang out with these guys again in a group like this, and to have that mission that we're on. And that's what broke my heart. Like, it was one of those, like, I still get emotional because, like, it was such a fun time. It was such a fun group to be around, man. And it was just, like, a lot of people don't get that experience. So, and that was a beautiful part about that.
No, and I think that was another hard part of going to college was how great my high school experience was.
Yeah.
Especially that last year of, everyone just did their part, it seemed like. Whether that's Logan Theobald, lockdown defender, just a great role player for us. Trevon,
oh my gosh.
Just caught every pass, finished everything. I think just everyone did their part through their players and coaches. And, I think just going back to those 6 a.m. workouts, of you coming in, with full energy, that is something as a coach, coming from a player who wasn't a vocal leader of, I'm trying to find my voice kind of right now of, when I can say stuff, when I can't say stuff. I'm kind of realizing of, players feed a lot off of the coach's energy when they walk in. If they walk in after a loss and, they kind of look PO'd or whatever it is, the players are going to be, they're going to be a little bit more tense, a little bit more uptight, and, they're probably going to make a few more mistakes. But I think that's one thing you did great of coming in as an assistant. You always said you never want to be a head coach because you can't say and do the things that you can do as an assistant. But no, I think that's one thing. Just a coach coming in, having positive energy, 6 a.m. in the morning. I think that kind of got us excited, got us ready to work. And one other great thing he did as a coach was going through our state championship run. We would have a sectional dinner at the Crims before every tournament game, basically. And he would make a highlight tape of everyone. Everyone from me, the best player, to whoever, a freshman who was barely playing. There would be a highlight of them. I think that's one thing that also got us excited was, there were a lot of things that we did as a team that just, I look back and was like, man, that was perfect. Whether that's, Dirty Dan.
Dirty Dan
is a little action figure who, after every win, we would hide him in the locker room, and Coach Mack our head coach would have to come in and try to find him. And we would,
While he was giving a
the
speech.
first one was like a little less creative, and like we were winning, 20 some games, whatever it was. Like at the end of it, it got we were trying to hide him in some pretty odd spots, and Coach Mack would always find him, and then we would just go crazy as a team. Just little things like that that I just look back on. I'm like, that we got excited to play because of those little things. It wasn't just all about basketball.
No.
There was so much more that goes into it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I mean, and I hope that those guys understand that my phone's always on. I know we got kids coming. You guys got kids coming, families, wives, and so it's just beautiful to see that. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're out of here, okay? Tomorrow, you're named the Commissioner of American Basketball. Anything you say goes. You could put in half courts are worth 5 points. You could put in a 4-point line. You could take away the 3-second defensive, and it has to go. You could say, hey, AAU is only playing 10 games over the summer. Whatever you say goes. What is Hayden Lankabel putting in and why?
Just because you said it was AAU, my time coming through AAU, I was never on the best teams. I didn't start getting looked at till after my junior year, going into my senior year, it's just a crap load of games that probably a lot of them don't mean anything. A lot of them there's no coaches at looking at you. AAU that I've kind of looked back on and realized is I wish I would have spent more weekends in a gym my freshman, sophomore, probably even my junior year of working out instead of going to play all those games on a mid-level team where you're playing 3 games and your third game of the day is just a crapshoot because everyone's tired. I wished early on in my career, and it's hard to do as a kid because games are the most fun. That's what everyone wants to do. But looking back now, I wish I would have spent more weekends, younger me, in the gym training by myself on things I need to work on.
I appreciate it, man. That's awesome. Everybody, if you're watching, if you made it this far, we appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to have these coming out consistently here for a while. Hoops Over Hype. Appreciate you listening. Thank you, Hayden, for being here.
Thank you.